Hi Casibang's crew, here we are with video number 3, and this is where we're going to get into thinking and problem solving, and we'll finish up by talking about language. This part of Unit 2 is very vocab heavy. So if you know the vocabulary, you're going to be just fine for this part of the unit. So I will be going fairly quickly through this. I'll give you examples of the vocabulary, but really know your vocab here and you're going to be just fine. So the first thing to note is that this unit is cognition, and we do have cognitive psychologists. So these are psychologists that are going to study how we think, all of our mental activities, how we form concepts, how we problem solve, how we make decisions, and how we make judgments. And the first thing that we want to talk about is this idea of a concept, especially and we're learning new information, we are going to use this idea of a concept to be able to add new information to what we already know. So the concept is just a group of similar things. Prototype is the image that comes to our mind as the best example when we're talking about a specific concept. So for example, if I give you the concept of a dog, you're going to think of a prototype, and the prototype might be your pet dog. If you've never had a dog, it might be a dog that your friend owns or a family member owns, or one that you've seen on TV. But I just want you to think about what things about your prototype dog make it a dog. So just think about that for a second. What things make it a dog? 4 legs, tail, maybe it barks, it's fluffy. Okay, what things about your concept make it a dog? Now that you've done that, I want you to look at these guys. Right? So are these guys still dogs? Of course, you guys would say, yes, absolutely they are, even though we have a couple of dogs that are missing 2 legs, and we have this cute guy here who has no fur, but we still know that they are dogs, even though they may not fit our prototype of a dog. We talk about creativity in cognition. So again, a set of confusing pairs here, convergent and divergent thinking. So when we are thinking about convergent thinking, we are thinking about all lines leading to or converging on, that's where the word comes from, one answer. So if you think of one answer in the middle of a circle, and all of our answers lead to that one answer. What I always think of is a math problem, okay? You know the answer is what you're trying to get to. So all ways that you're going to solve that math problem are all going to lead you to that one correct answer. Whereas divergent thinking is where you start with one point and you work outward. You try to come up with as many different ideas or different connections as you possibly can. And that is what creativity is considered. Okay? Divergent thinkers are said to be very creative thinkers. So able to start at one point and work your way out to many different ideas. So there are a lot of different ways that we problem solve. First one is insight. And this is just like a light bulb moment. This is when we just suddenly get the realization or get the answer to our problem. Maybe we're not even thinking about it and it just sort of comes to us like in the shower that morning. An algorithm is a very step-by-step, very logical approach to solving a problem. So you're going to follow every single step, every single time to be able to get to that particular solution. And again, here I tend to think of math problems that way. You have to go step by step in order to reach the correct solution at the end. Whereas a heuristic is a little bit different. A heuristic is a strategy that allows us to make judgments or to solve problems very quickly and very efficiently. It is almost always a lot faster than using algorithms. but it can be more prone to error. And there's a lot of different ways that we use heuristics, and you may not even think about it. Think about how you solve a puzzle. Old-fashioned box of 500 puzzle pieces, you dump it all out. What's the first thing that you're going to do? So the first thing that I would do is pull the corners out. That's a heuristic. Okay, so that is a simple problem-solving strategy that allows us to do things a little bit more quickly. Here's just a little like meme that kind of gives you an idea on the difference between heuristic and algorithm. Okay, it's crazy, these rules that we have in the English language, and then all the words that break that rule. Okay, so unscramble these letters. Okay, it does form a word. So if we were to use the algorithm method, there are 907,000 combinations if we unscramble this. But using a heuristic and the things that we know about the English language, we know that there are no two Y's together in a word. So we can already figure that out. What other heuristics can you use to help you solve or unscramble this problem? Okay, the right answer is psychology. Okay, the right answer is psychology. So did you use one of your heuristics to figure that out? Okay, so listen to this one. A stranger tells you about a person who is short, slim, and likes to read poetry. The stranger then asks you to guess whether this person is more likely to be a professor of the classics at an Ivy League university or a truck driver. Which would be the better guess? So which do you think? What's the better guess on this one? Okay, so did you consider the following questions? Did you pick the professor? If you did, you failed to think about some very relevant information. How many Ivy League universities are there? I'm picking a number out of a hat. I'm just going to say 10. I'm not sure if that's even right. Let's just say there's 10. How many classics professors are at each university? Maybe one or two. Okay, maybe one or two. So we're talking 20 professors. What fraction of those 20 are slim and short? Okay, even if it's 17 out of 20. How many of that fraction like to read poetry? Again, maybe it's 16 out of 20. How many truck drivers are there? Okay, there's probably 200,000 truck drivers. How many are short and slim? Okay, even if only half of them, that's still 100,000. And then how many like to read poetry? Again, even if it's only half of them, that's 50,000 versus our 16 professors. Okay, so that is an example of how a heuristic could lead to errors. All right, so there are two different types of heuristics. And again, here's another set of confusing pairs for you. So the representativeness heuristic is making a judgment or solving a problem based on how well it is represented or matches a particular prototype. So this might lead you to ignore other relevant information, like our example of the professor versus the truck driver. Okay, so we're judging the likelihood of someone being short, slim, and liking poetry. The likelihood is they're a professor, when really we ignore the fact that there's probably a very, very small number of humanities professors out there. Availability heuristic is estimating the likelihood based on their availability in your memory, So if an instance or an event comes to mind, you think that event is more prominent. It's more available. So for example, maybe your Uncle Bob is a humanities professor and he is short and slim and likes poetry. So that is what immediately came to your mind So you just used that availability, that available memory to make a decision on our previous example. So another example of availability heuristic is an airplane crash. Whenever an airplane crashes, 200 people lose their lives and it's on the news and it's very tragic and we talk about it. But in reality, more people die from plane crashes than they do from airplane crashes. It's just that we don't hear about them as often. So take a look at the matchstick problem. How would you arrange 6 matches to form 4 equilateral triangles? And I'm going to give you the answer in a few slides, but how would you do this? I want you to take a minute and try and figure it out. Here's another problem solving. Candle mounting problem. Using just these materials that you see here, how would you mount the candle on a bulletin board? How would you mount the candle on a bulletin board? Pause here if you need to, but I want you to try and figure this out. I'll give you the answer later. Okay, so there are unfortunately, lots of obstacles to problem solving. And here are a few of them, and we're going to go over a few more in just a second. The first one is confirmation bias. So we already have a belief. So now we're just going to search for more information that confirms our belief. So this is, let's take politics, for example. So you either love President Trump or you hate President Trump. And whatever you're looking for on social media or, Google searches or newspaper articles, whatever you're looking for is going to be information that confirms what you already believe. That's confirmation bias. You're not really going to listen to anything that is opposite of what you're trying to already believe. Fixation is being fixed. I see that word fixed in fixation. So it's being fixed on a solution, not being able to find a different solution to solve your problem. Mental set is approaching a problem in a particular way, particularly a way that has worked for you in the past. So it may have worked for you in the past, but it doesn't always mean that it is going to solve every single problem. So for example, your past relationship, whenever you got into an argument with your girlfriend, you always gave her flowers and everything was forgiven. Well, now you're with a new girlfriend and you just got into a fight and you bring flowers and it's not working out. And you're like, wait, why? It's always worked for me before. What's happening? And you can't really figure out a way. You can't really see past the getting flowers to a new solution. Functional fixedness is actually one of my favorite concepts. I talk about it all the time. But functional fixedness is being fixed in a function for something and in the way something functions. So you tend to use things in only the way that they were designed to be used. So again, this could impede your ability to solve problems. So for example, I want you to think about all the different ways that you can use a paperclip. Okay? Think about all the different ways that you can use a paperclip. I want you to write them down. Write them down in your notes. Okay? How many ways can you come up with to use a paperclip? And the problem with functional fixedness is you may be in a situation or having a problem and there's something there that could help you out of your problem, but because it isn't normally used for that, then you don't really think about it. All right, there's the solution to our matchstick problem. So how many of you got this one right? Okay, how many of you got it right? And then here is the solution to our candle mounting problem. So again, how many of you got this one right? All right, so the last few obstacles to problem solving. One is overconfidence. This is the tendency to be more confident than you are correct. Okay, so you're more confident about your answer than the answer is really correct. You tend to just overestimate your belief about being right. And then framing. Again, think of advertising when you think of framing. The way an issue is posed. So how an issue is framed can affect the decisions that you make about it. So again, think about advertising. Think about the grocery store. So what would be the best way to market ground beef? 25% fat or 75% lean? Okay, what you're going to see on the packaging is 75% lean because it just sounds better. Okay, it sounds better than saying 25% fat. So that the way something is framed, and we do this very often in advertising, can affect how you perceive something. Belief bias and belief perseverance are two other ones. So our belief bias is the tendency for your pre-existing belief to not allow you to think logically about a problem. So you believe something about an event or somebody or something, and therefore you just stop thinking critically about it, or you stop thinking logically about it. Belief perseverance is clinging to that first impression, okay? Clinging to that initial conception, even though that information has been discredited, even though that information, it has been proven to you that it is not true. You're still kind of clinging to that belief. So moving on to language. So language, textbook definition, spoken, written, or gesture, and the way we combine them to be able to communicate meaning. So grammar, a lot of this is going to be review. You've done this in English class already. Okay, so grammar is a system of rules in language that enable us to communicate. We also talk about semantics. These are the rules by which we derive meaning from morphemes, words, and sentences. Okay, it's also the study of meaning. So semantics, all about meaning. Syntax is how we combine words into grammatically sensible sentences. Okay, this is the grammar that you've learned in English class. All right, so another set of confusing pairs. A morpheme, the smallest unit of a word that carries meaning. It can be a whole word or just part of a word. Think of prefixes and suffixes. So the way that I remember this one, mnemonic device, morpheme, the M in morpheme goes with the M in meaning. And then phonemes, again, in language, it's the smallest distinctive sound. Okay, so morpheme is meaning, phoneme is sound. So real quickly, figure these out. Okay, and this is on your video guide as well. Pause here if you need to pause. All right, so how does language develop when we are just babies? So it starts around 3 to 4 months old, when baby is 3 to 4 months old, and we call it the babbling stage. This is just the infant just making sounds, okay? They're just moving their mouth and they realize that they can make things come out of their mouth. So doesn't usually sound like anything. It's really just noises. And then when they're around the age of 1 to 2 years old, then we get to the one-word stage. And here the infant or the toddler is just speaking in single words. So usually mama, dada, want, bottle, cookie, okay, things like that. And they're going to communicate with you just using those few single words that they know. Then around the age of 2, they go into the 2-word stage. Okay, and these are sometimes called telegraphic speech. So it's kind of like a telegram. Again, old word. You guys have probably never actually seen a telegram before, but it's like a noun and a verb. So go car, or me hungry, or me tired. So 2-word statements. Mommy up. Okay, those are kind of things that they would use in this 2-word stage or use in telegraphic speech. So there's a couple of theories on how language develops that you do need to know. Benjamin Whorf's theory is called linguistic determinism. And he says that language determines the way that we think. And he said that different languages give us a different idea of reality. And what he was basically talking about here is that in different cultures, in different languages around the world, they have different words that mean different things. Or there may even be the absence of words because they don't ever experience that. So think of people in like the deserts of Africa don't have a word for snow because they've never experienced snow before. So that's what he means by language determining the way that we think. Skinner's operant learning, and we're going to talk about B.F. Skinner a bit more in the next unit when we get to learning. But Skinner said that language develops by a child interacting with older children or adults. So he said it can be explained in 3 different ways. The first one is association. So seeing things with the sounds of the words on them. So if you've ever been in a pre-K classroom or in a daycare center, even in a foreign language room, like in a teacher's room that teaches Spanish or French, they'll have words up all over the room. So they'll have the word for the door up above the door, and the window by the window, and desk by the desk. And this is what he means by association. So they're learning the words along with the visual image of what that word actually is. Imitation. So this is learning by imitating other people. So oftentimes you'll hear adults speaking to children, even though they may not really understand the words completely that are being spoken to them. But the more they hear, the more they will learn. And then reinforcement, smiles and hugs. Okay, so when your child says something correctly or learns new words or learns a new sentence, smiling, rewarding them will encourage them to continue to learn. And then the last one is Noam Chomsky's idea of inborn universal language. So he says is that there is a natural development to language that every person has over the course of time. And he says this is possible because there is a particular part of our brain, which he called the language acquisition device, it is abbreviated to LAD, in our brains that is ready to be switched on when children need to start learning language. And so not necessarily from the day of birth, but when they need to start learning language, it's then switched on, and that's how they continue to learn language. And he said that there is, in all human language, no matter what country or culture you're from, there are universal grammar rules. There's nouns and verbs and pronouns in every single language that is spoken throughout the entire world. Noam Chomsky also talked about critical periods. So he said there was a particular time period in a child's development when they need to be learning language. And if they are not learning language in that time period, and he said by the age of 7, that was his idea, by the age of 7, if children do not learn language by the age of 7, then it severely limits their ability to learn language. And we are going to watch a documentary that really illustrates this concept of critical periods. Okay, the last thing about language is the parts of the brain that deal with language. And I'm going to come back to this slide in just a second. This is my mnemonic device, and I'll also show you this in class. But my mnemonic device to help you with these different parts of the brain. So the first part of the brain is called Broca's area. And Broca's area helps with the actual movements, like the movements of your mouth and your tongue and your jaw, that are required to help you speak. And Broca's area is located in your frontal lobe, right? On the left side of your brain, but in the frontal lobe, which is here toward the front of your brain. If you are experiencing Broca's aphasia, that means that you've lost this ability to produce language. So there's something going on between your brain and the muscles in your mouth and your tongue and your jaw that make it very difficult for you to be able to produce language. The second area of your brain is Wernicke's area. So Wernicke's area actually helps you to understand speech. It helps you to be able to pick and choose the correct words that you want to use to help people understand what you're trying to say. And Wernicke's area, again, is located on the left side of your brain, but it's here, like on the side, right above your ear in the temporal lobe. And Wernicke's aphasia is the inability to understand language. So I'm going to go back to this graphic here. And this is my mnemonic device to help me remember the difference between Broca's and Wernicke's. So here's my little B here, and it's like stuttering a little bit. I am broke. So the B in Broca's area is B standing for broke or broken words. Okay, so they're not able to physically form the words with their mouth. And then the W over here is for Wernicke's. And Wernicke's got a few different things going on over here. It keeps saying, what? And it's got a blah, blah, blah going on and kind of like crazy eyes. Wernicke's is like what? Wernicke's doesn't understand. And Wernicke's is selling the word salad. So what we mean by word salad is that we're saying words, but they're all jumbled up. They don't go together, okay? I might think, if I was suffering from Wernicke's aphasia, I might think that I'm trying to say exactly what I want to say, but the words that are actually coming out of my mouth are all jumbled. They don't make sense together. So whoever's listening is like, what are you trying to say? But this is my mnemonic device to help me try and remember the difference between Wernicke's and Broca's. I want you guys to come up with your own mnemonic device to be able to tell the difference between Wernicke's and Broca's. All right, that's it. So make sure you guys finish up your video notes. Make sure you bring them into class tomorrow. And I want questions. Make sure everyone is writing down at least one question from everything that we learned today. Have a great day. Bye.